Wake up, Private! You're in some serious shit!
Aliens vs Predator Classic 2000, which no, isn't the 2000th game in the series, though there might be that many games with aliens and predators in them, is a first-person shooter that was released by Rebellion Developments, who had previously made an Aliens vs Predator game in 1994 for the Atari Jaguar, which is a shooter in a similar style to the first Wolfenstein and Doom games, but they wanted to make a version for the PlayStation, Sega Saturn and PC by 1997, since the sales for the Atari Jaguar console were a little lackluster. I mean, I don't know why it didn't sell well, just look at this great controller the console had. Ew. Though they didn't just want to make a port of the game, but instead an improved version of it. They even showed a demo of the game for the PlayStation at E3 in 1997 that had more polygons, better textures, and improved lighting. These improvements did however come at a cost as they pushed the game's release date back, and they eventually had to ditch the PlayStation and Sega Saturn versions of the game. Finally, the game did release in 1999 for PC and sold well enough to get an expansion pack that added more levels and now allowed players to save in missions, which you would think such a feature like being able to save in a mission would be standard in games, even in the late 90s. Though apparently it wasn't, but we'll come back to talking about the save system in a bit. So with the expansion out, they bundle it together with the main game, and release it together in the Gold Edition in 2000. See, that's where the 2000 comes in. The game was definitely a step up from the Jaguar version, with fully 3D environments and lighting that made the game way more atmospheric. That played more heavily into gameplay. Also, like the Jaguar version of the game, it allowed you to play as the aliens, the marines, or Predator, which all have fairly different playstyles, and made the game fairly unique among shooters of the time. Though after a few years, the game did become abandonware, as some older games do. But in 2010, an updated version of the game was released on Steam and GOG, which allowed it to work on more modern PCs. This is where I should probably chat about how it runs. Starting up the game, I didn't have any problems, as it ran mostly okay and the options are decent for an older game, but I did try and search online if there was any way to improve the game, and this is when I came across the Redux mod, which a fair amount of people recommended. Installing it added some improvements and a few other things that maybe didn't need to be added. Like the textures are generally better than the original game, and some have been updated to make sense with the Alien vs Predator movies that came out after this game. So for the few people who did enjoy those movies, it's probably a nice addition, I guess. Though I do question the use of some other textures which were added. Like, I don't remember any of the Marines speaking German in the movies, but maybe I missed that bit of lore. Also, if you do use the Redux mod, it might add some problems. Like, when you finish a mission, the game might crash, and it won't record that you finished the mission, so you won't make progress. There is a way around this by downloading a save file with all the missions completed, which gets around the crashing problem, though it's maybe not the most ideal solution. I don't want to bash too hard, as the mod was made by a fan. Like, I mean, there are some improvements. The spear gun sounds way better in the Redux mod. Though I think the sound was borrowed from the second game in the series, and it does add some NPCs to levels that were not there before to help a bit. Though as you can tell at times, the game wasn't made with this in mind, as the AI does break a bit more when using the mod, which to be fair does happen in the base game a little bit too. I played through the game both with and without the mod, and it's generally okay either way, but I did enjoy the game a bit more without it, so I'm mostly going to be talking about that version of the game. Though as I go through the review, I might mention when the mod did something better or worse than the original game, for people who are curious. While the original game might have low detail textures, it does sell the atmosphere of a game set in the same universe as aliens and predators, like going through dark hallways that are barely lit, which might be hiding things that are out to kill you. Like, look at this hallway, do you want to walk down it? I know I don't, but I have to because it's part of the review. The sense of dread is nearly ever present, which means the game is doing a good job of creating a scary environment. This is done so well because of the lighting, which is used to great effect in the levels, and will keep you on edge as you force yourself through the hallways, not knowing what creatures are around the corner, which will be the opposite if you're playing as the alien, that will use the dark to hide and sneak around to plan where to attack from. The sense of dread when playing as the aliens comes from not wanting to be exposed by the light, because if the marines can see you, they can shoot you. So it's kind of a cool duality of how the lighting works to affect gameplay, where the marines are scared of the dark and the aliens are scared of the light. For the predators is a little less scary because they can take a hit or two, unlike the marines and aliens which are made of one-ply tissue paper in comparison. So the predators don't really need to hide, but it might be more efficient for them to sneak around, though I'll chat a bit about that later. The game's sounds are generally pretty good and did a great job of creeping me out at times, especially the wriggly sound a facehugger makes, which the moment I hear puts me on edge.
Stop it.
Most of the sounds are sourced from the movies, like the motion tracker, which does its job of making you worry about every dot you hear on it. Also, I did like this bit when you're playing as the alien, and the closer you get to the center of the hive, you start to hear a heartbeat, like you're a smaller part of a larger organism, just making its way deep into the body of the hive. It felt very appropriate when playing as an alien. The soundtrack is also pretty good, like I would swear some of these tracks are from the movies, though it does get a little loud at points, especially when you want to catch what's happening on the monitors throughout the levels, which is another unique thing about this game. There are these live action vids, which play via communication monitors throughout the game's levels, levels. They play in all the campaigns as you make your way through them, and are where you get most of the story for the game, apart from the short cutscenes that play at the start and the end of each campaign. For the Marine campaign, they'll be the main way you get orders and how to make progress, while for the Aliens and Predator campaign, they kinda serve the same purpose, though it's more seeing the results of the destructive chaos you unleash on humans, while kinda getting hints on where to go and what to destroy next.
Attention all units! The Predator has accessed level 4! All doors have been secured. Stay on maximum alert!
The vids are sometimes entertaining to watch, as you can tell it's just the British developers who are trying to do American accents and act as best as they can.
God damn it, looks like the unit has some trouble. We're afraid you're on your own.
It kinda has a B-movie quality cheesiness to it that I sometimes enjoyed. The original of these comm messages were done by American actors when the game first came out, but were later replaced by Rebellion staff in the Gold Edition. The reason given is that Rebellion felt the original actors didn't have a lot of urgency in their performances, which made me want to have a look at them.
Welcome to the main colony base, Marine. Looks like the colonists shit a brick and pulled out. There's an APC beyond the main gate, but the power's shut down. You'll have to open the gate remotely.
And yeah, they aren't acted bad or anything, they're just a bit dull compared to the British versions. It's a little odd that the American version is so, understated compared to the Brits. Usually it's the other way around, right? With Americans being the go big or go home types. The British version really goes for it at points.
I repeat, they are not xenomorphs! These guys have some serious firepower, but we've taken heavy casualties! Oh! Dock 4 is no longer secure! Cancel the earthbound ship! I say again! Dock 4 is no longer secure! Are you guys hearing this? Are you hearing this? These guys are...
I can't help but be entertained by that kind of effort being put in. Another thing I need to talk about is the save system in the game, which isn't a strong point. The game limits you to 8 save slots for all 3 campaigns, and on top of that, depending on the difficulty you choose, you can only save a limited amount of times in levels. Now there could be a few reasons why the devs decided on this. One could be to add tension to the levels, as you would have to be strategic with your choice of save points in order to make progress, but you'll already die very easily while playing the game, well except for the Predator campaign, though there can be tricky bits when playing as the Predator, so you already have a lot of tension going through the levels, and this added hindrance of limited saves becomes more of a frustration than something that adds to the tension. The reason that I think is more likely is that they just wanted to lengthen how long it took to complete the game, since it is a little short. Luckily, there is a way around the save limit per level by using a command line, which I'll put a link to down below on how to do it. You can also sort of get around the 8 save slot problem by making a profile for each campaign. It's not the most ideal solution for the game, but it's better than just having 8 save slots for all 3 campaigns. Anyway, after all that fun, what's the game like to play? Well, because of all the playable species being a bit different from each other, let's get into them individually, while I talk about each of their campaigns, since all of their stories are separate from each other, so there isn't really any crossover in their stories. Think of each campaign as a different timeline where that species comes out on top. And don't worry about spoilers, there isn't that much to spoil for each of their story campaigns. If you've seen any Alien or Predator movie, well, the good ones, then you know what to expect. A few good scares, blowing up some aliens, and hunting for some trophies. Let's start with the Marines, since they have a classic first-person shooter setup. At the start of the game, you'll get the iconic pulse rifle from the movies. It's good for taking out enemies at medium range. Just be careful with the attached grenade launcher. You'll also have a motion tracker that beeps for every bit of motion near you, including doors and elevators, which might keep you on edge, but it will occasionally give you a heads up if there are some aliens heading your way. What the game does well at the start of the first mission, which is just you trying to make it out of a base, is make things feel tense, as you're alone going down dark, empty corridors with alarms blaring, like there could be anything in the dark just waiting to come and get you. The game really takes advantage of its lighting to make you feel anxious, and it will give you a scare now and again. Another nice thing the game does is give you an image intensifier so you can see in the dark, which you would think would solve all your scary can't see in the dark problems, but there is a catch to using it, as the tiniest bit of light can and will blind you, and you can't use the motion tracker while the image intensifier is on, so you're not going to get any early warnings if something is just around the corner. It's best to use it in complete darkness or when you need to see the target a bit better. There is another way the game helps you to see in the dark, and that is the infinite amount of flares it gives you, though you can only throw 4 at a time, and have to wait for at least one of them to go out, before you can throw another one. This is good to use down long hallways to maybe see what's in the dark at the end of it, or in narrow corridors where it will give you just enough light so you can see what you're shooting at. But it only lights up so much, and if you use them you can't use the image intensifier, as remember bright lights will blind you when using it. So a lot of the Marines gameplay is knowing when to use each of these tools to be most effective when fighting in the dark. You'll need all of this to survive, as the Marine even with armor won't last long in melee range of the aliens, because even if you kill the alien charging at you, if they get close enough, that acid blood they have is going to take a chunk out of your health, so you'll always want to take them out at a distance if you can. The aliens themselves aren't tough, enough, if you aim well enough, you can take one out easy. Though the problem is they use the dark to get closer to you, and they're fast, so it's harder to shoot them. And by the time you have a good shot, they'll probably be on top of you. Also, the game doesn't have regenerating health, so you're gonna need to find health pickups, and armor packs to stay alive, which makes things more tense. The game does give enough pickups around the levels to keep you going, if you haven't taken too much damage. The game is also fairly generous with ammo, especially for the pulse rifle, which you'll need in case sometimes you spray and pray with bullets. That I totally never did. The first mission gets you used to, well, prepared for what you'll face for the rest of the game, where you'll find ways to open doors or get specific objectives done to make progress. There will also be strong references to the movies as you go through the game, which makes sense since you're on the planet LV-426 from the first two Alien movies. Yeah, Weyland-Yutani is added again. Now once you made it out the base, you escape to a nearby colony, which is very similar to Hadley's Hope from Aliens. Your next mission has you trying to make it out of this overrun colony that is currently under lockdown. This level did a good job of getting some scares out of me. It's good at making you want to find a way out as quick as possible, and it's not exactly clear where to go next, which adds to the tension. Though if you do look around, you'll find some extra weapons like dual pistols. They are okay but a bit slow for my liking, so I felt a bit safer sticking with the pulse rifle. On the other hand, you can also find a smart gun, which is pretty great at making you feel a little safer. Just like the movies, these guns track the targets for you, so you don't need to aim much. Just point in the general direction to make the scary thing go away. This level with the Redux mod does look better, but because some scenery was added, it can make the alien AI bug out a bit more than usual, which it does a little in the unmodded version of the game too, but a fair bit more with the mod, which can make the levels a little less scary at times. The reason I think this happens is because, from what I can tell from how the devs made the levels, they had to manually place markers where the alien AI could run around in the game, so that they didn't end up stuck on things, which apparently was a nightmare to get right. And with the Redux mod adding things in, it can mess this up a bit. So the game will look prettier, but sometimes buggier too. Anyway, back to the mission. You need to find a way to open the main gate, so you can make it to an APC that's waiting to pick you up, which means going deep into the colony building that is swarming with aliens. It's a little harrowing, but you get the job done. Also, you'll encounter facehuggers for the first time, which are hard to shoot, and if they get close to you, it's a one-hit kill. Luckily, the game gives you a flamethrower just before you encounter them, which is really effective, though don't use it at close quarters, because you might feel how effective it is. Once you've done everything to open the main gate, all that's left is to make a run for the APC, through a trench which has a bunch of aliens in it. Good thing we have the smart gun. The next mission has you trying to blow up an atmosphere processing station, by turning off all the cooling valves throughout the station. In the base game you do this by yourself, but with the Redux mod you have some friendly NPCs to help you, though they kinda don't last very long against the aliens, which is actually kinda accurate to the movies, though they do seem a little dense. Searching for the valves can be quite a chore, as the aliens don't stop coming at you throughout the level. While it is scary at first to constantly have aliens coming at you, it does start to get a little tedious. Like there are no moments to build tension where the level is quiet, which would help build suspense for the next time the aliens come at you, like a good horror movie would do. Instead it's mostly fight after fight and getting lost a little in the level, until you eventually find and turn all the valves that starts to make the station go critical, though you get picked up by a dropship before any of the fireworks happen. The dropship takes you to your next mission, which is on a station orbiting the planet. This is where I should talk about a little problem with the way the game has chosen to share its story. That is mostly via communication monitors and the environment, which are good ways to tell the story, but sometimes the game doesn't give you a chance to enjoy it. Like in this mission when you get on the station and get told via a monitor that predator ships are attacking, and that there's a new secret weapon the company has let loose on the station. You get to see the ships attack right outside the window. That's great. The problem is the aliens keep attacking you while all this is happening, so it's kinda hard to enjoy the moment, which is rare in this game when you get to see a bit of story action happen in front of you. The Redux mod does kind of fix this a bit by having friendly NPCs guarding the vent where the aliens are spawning, so you can watch the briefing and see the predators do the flyby while destroying the dropship, which is an improvement I think. This mission also has you going against a few predators for the first time, which is a little anticlimactic. I mean, they are tough to bring down and will do a lot of damage if they hit you with their weapons, but they tend to just run around while being invisible mostly, while occasionally taking shots at you. It's not really a climactic battle like at the end of the first Predator movie. Speaking of which, there is a little Easter egg that if you don't quite kill a predator, they do the self-destruct thing. They even include the Billy laugh from the movie. Which doesn't make sense if you think about it too much, since that predator died in the movie and a few hundred years before this setting, so how would these predators have that laugh? Well, my own bit of headcanon is the predators like to share their own prey MP3 recordings that they take out while hunting and put it on whatever version of the internet they have, and that Billy laugh became a meme for them. Bunch of hunting nerds. Anyway, you go through the station under almost constant attack and get to see what the company's secret weapon is, which turns out to be a Xenoborg. Yeah, a cybernetic alien with freaking laser beams. Thankfully they don't move at all, but they are really tough and and will one-shot kill you if they track you, so best to avoid or run away from them. It's a kind of interesting what-if scenario, where Weyland Yutani actually got a hold of these aliens and turned them into weapons, though you die so quickly when you see them that you can't quite tell what they are, unless you stun them with a rocket. The mission ends with you escaping to a ship called the Travago, which is where you start the next mission. This mission is tough to get through as you won't just face regular aliens, but beefier versions called Praetorians. The level is a bit of a grind to get through, with some bits pretty much designed so you can only get through them if you've died in the section before, which I don't think makes the game more enjoyable. This mission must have been hell to get through with limited saves. Like, as much as the difficulty adds to the tension level, it also feels like the devs are throwing everything they can at you to slow progress from getting to the end. Though I did like this one little story bit in the mission, where the guy on comms who's been helping you through the game is forced to reluctantly betray you. But if you beat a kind of final boss of the level, which is an odd fleshy predator-alien hybrid thing, he disobeys orders and tries to help you escape, which leads to the last mission in the game, which is you versus the queen alien in the hangar deck. Now, the first time playing this, you think you'd probably have to take it out with the weapons you have, but it's actually a puzzle you need to figure out in order to eject her out an airlock. And once you know the sequence of buttons to press and the pipes you need to destroy, the level can be completed in less than a minute. I didn't like this. It felt a bit anticlimactic for a shooter game to have a puzzle as the final challenge of the game. There isn't any hint in the level that you need to do this too. Well, maybe you would have got the idea if you watched the movies. So you can end up hitting your head against the wall over and over again trying to beat this boss with just bullets, which I think was the intent of the level, to make it last longer. Anyway, with that done, you get the Marines campaign's final cutscene that hints there are more problems in the future. I mostly enjoyed the beginning and the middle of the Marine campaign, though as it gets to the end it starts to feel like a bit of an anticlimactic grind to get through. Maybe things are different in the Predator campaign. This campaign starts with you as a Predator breaking into a Marine base to look for a lost comrade. In the unmodded version of the game, you start right outside the base, but in the Redux mod, I think the modder decided to add or put back a remove section to the start of the mission, as it begins with you making your way through a rocky canyon area to the base, which kinda doesn't make sense with a cutscene at the start. Also, this is only my opinion, but this extra added bit doesn't have the best textures, and it doesn't make the level better, so I'm not sure why it was added in. But back to the unmodded version of the game, you make your way into the base, which as you make progress you'll find that the Predator is way more tanky than the Marine. Not only that, but his weapons pack a punch, like the Plasma Caster, which if you have the right vision mode selected will auto-target enemies. Also, the Predator can heal himself with the Medicom. So way overpowered, right? Well, yes, but no. To use the fancy stuff like the Plasma Caster and the Medicom, you need energy. And you have a limited amount of it that does recharge over time, but very slowly. There are some energy pickups in the levels, but there aren't too many of those. So if you go too crazy with the Plasma Caster, you'll run out of energy really quick. Which also means if you need healing, you won't have enough energy to do it. Now in the first few missions where you're breaking into the base, and mostly going up against lightly equipped Marines, this isn't going to be too much of a problem. But in later missions, you're going to have to deal with a lot more alien enemies. And the Marines in later missions are going to be equipped with smart guns, miniguns, and grenade launchers. Even a Predator knows that discretion is the better part of valor when dealing with that kind of firepower. So you're going to need to rely on weapons and tactics that aren't going to deplete your energy too much, such as using your cloak tech, which only uses a smaller amount of energy over time, which will help you get into melee range of some enemies, or help you hide from their long range attacks. Using your claw attacks will help save on energy. Another weapon that helps with this is the spear gun, that when combined with a Predator's ability to zoom in is a very effective sniper rifle, which impales rather than doing a clean kill. It gives a bit of a different meaning when you're getting a headshot, but don't go too crazy with it as it has limited ammo. The Predator's story isn't too deep. Like, your first few missions are just making your way into a Marine base, trying to recover Predator tech and a ship while finding out what happened to your fellow Predator, which either has you finding keycards or just breaking stuff to make progress in the level. I did enjoy that as you go through some of the levels, the comm messages get a bit more panicked.
What the hell is going on out there? We've lost sight of the intruder! All units, report immediately!
The midpoint of the story has you finding out that humans are experimenting with aliens, but since the humans are so focused on trying to stop you, they mess up and let loose the aliens. This forces you to switch vision modes, so you can keep track of the aliens as you go through the darker levels, which feel like an endless horde, though you do get some new weapons to help keep them at bay. Just don't go too crazy with them or you'll be stuck fighting at melee range with aliens. And they might not insta-kill you, but the acid and constant melee attacks will eventually get you. This point in the missions felt like it was a good test of balancing the use of all the tools I had to stay alive. It's a bit of a struggle, but kind of fun, though at the end of the mission is a bit of a letdown again, as you find out what happened to the other Predator you were looking for. Yeah, he was used by the human experiments to make a Predator-alien hybrid, which I thought would be a fun fight, but was over a little bit too quickly. But the mission does end with the base being set to self-destruct, which you have a minute to escape from. If you explored the level before this, you'll figure out how to escape. The next mission is just a hunt in an alien-infested base, which is a bit tough but kind of felt like a filler mission that has some references to Alien 3. On the last two missions, you basically go hunting for the Queen Alien, in a hive that's guarded by Marines, who are trying to contain it, though you help uncontain it. This mission felt like the devs were running out of steam, as the AI enemies don't really seem to be working 100%. I mean, even the comm message at the start is barely acted.
Unit 3-2, specimen batch 27 has been collected. We're ready to pull out. Report to high control immediately.
Anyway, you break into the hive, which is being guarded by a Xenoborg on the outside, and 2 Praetorians on the inside, which are a bit of a challenge, but you make it past, with the last mission being you going up against the Queen, but you have no energy weapons, because the Predator's honor code doesn't allow it for some reason. But I'll accept it, I guess there are a bunch of hunting nerds after all. Again, the Redux mod adds a small section before the fight for some reason. It includes a short bit of platforming, and again, I don't think this is an improvement, as the unmodded game just starts you near the fight so you can just get into it, which I think is better. This boss fight is a little fun, because not only are you fighting only with non-energy weapons, but there's also a facehugger running around the arena, which you need to keep track of or you'll instantly die if it gets you. So you can either try and shoot the facehugger first, which is tricky to do with a queen chasing you, and how small a target the facehugger is, or you could try and avoid both of them through the entire fight, which is also a bit tricky. This felt like a good final mission, as it's a bit of a challenge and isn't over too quickly. So with the queen slayed and that annoying facehugger taken care of, all that's left is the alien campaign. This campaign is pretty different from the others. You only have melee attacks, which are your claws and tail, which you can coil up for a more powerful attack. Now, even though the aliens can only fight close up, they do have the most powerful melee attacks in the game. So if you get close enough to an enemy, they are literally one swipe away from death, though the hard bit is getting close to them. Because you are a glass cannon that can barely take a scratch before dying. You will need to get used to dying a fair bit in this campaign, but you have some abilities to help you. Like you can climb on walls and ceilings and are pretty hard to spot in the dark, so your best bet is to pull a Batman and strike from the shadows. Also, you are lightning fast, so you can use the speed to attack as quick as possible before the enemy has a chance to shoot, or run away as quick as possible to get to a safer position. But if you do get injured and need to recover some health, you might be wondering if there's any health pickups around. And yeah, there are plenty. They're all the enemies you attack. Just munch on a brain or two and you'll be at full health. You can also eat the bodies, but that doesn't give as much health. Also, aliens don't eat synthetic food, so androids aren't going to be part of a balanced meal. And unlike the other 2 campaigns, you can see enemies in the dark fairly easily, so you don't need to worry what's in the shadows. This playstyle of sneaking around and stalking can be fun, once you get a hang of the speed and climbing, which at first can be disorientating, though it's enjoyable once you get the drop on a few enemies by climbing on the ceiling or going through a few vents. The missions for the aliens are the least story driven, though like the Predator missions, it's a bit of fun to see the reactions on the comms to your progress. You start out in a hive temple that needs to be protected from marines who have gotten into it, and started stealing eggs for experiments from the lower parts of the temple. Anyway, you start crawling your way through the temple, and learn from the start of the game that fire is very dangerous for aliens. Like the first enemies you come across are carrying Molotov cocktails, which I wasn't sure what was happening the first time I attacked them, as I was instantly set on fire with no indication why, but after a few tries I did notice them throwing them at me, so the trick to dealing with them is to get them to throw the bottle before attacking them so they don't set you alight. Also, if you hear a turret, try and find another way around, or you'll just be another statistic. Once you've protected the hive in the first mission, it's time to break containment in a second mission and catch a ride on an escaping spacecraft that's carrying some eggs the marines have stolen. On the third mission, you cause some havoc on a freighter which the spacecraft landed on. You'll see a lot of the first Alien movie references on this mission, before causing the freighter to self-destruct. But just like the first Alien movie, you sneak aboard an escape shuttle, which takes you to the fourth mission, which is set on Gateway, a station really close to Earth. This mission has some fairly heavily armed marines, so it's going to take a few tries to get through. Again, you pretty much just break stuff to make progress to the final mission, where you'll encounter predators for some reason. It's not exactly clear. The fight with them is even more anticlimactic than the Marine campaign, as with just a swipe from your tail, they are beaten. But with that done, you get the Aliens campaign's closing cutscene, with the aliens heading to their dream vacation spot on Earth. Alien vs Predator Classic 2000 is a bit of a mixed bag. There is some good gameplay and some nice scary bits, but also a few letdowns, especially with some of the later levels. There is a little bit of replayability in the game, where if you do finish missions on the higher difficulties, you unlock bonus missions, but these missions are just you playing levels in reverse, from the other species campaigns with some different objectives. It's not that engaging from my perspective, as if you've explored those levels fully, like you have to in order to make progress, there doesn't feel like there's anything new to find. They do try to add stuff like a grapple for the Predator and a jetpack for the Marine to make these levels more interesting, but that's not enough for me. Though I will say the game does have the atmosphere of the movies it's based on, which did give me some good scares and some enjoyable shooting, so it might be worth it if that sort of thing interests you. But for me, I needed a bit more variety in the pacing of the gameplay, and some more story to keep me coming back for more. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, consider subscribing. See you next time.